There are two kinds of people in this world: those who learn from silence, and those who never stop talking long enough to learn anything at all. If you want to know which one you are, keep listening, because by the end of this video, you will never look at a foolish person the same way again, and more importantly, you will never look at yourself the same way again either. A wise man rarely announces his wisdom. He lets his actions speak, while the fool wastes his breath explaining himself before anyone even asks. Notice this: the next time you meet someone new, the less someone truly knows, the longer and louder their explanations become. Real understanding doesn't need decoration. Truth, spoken plainly, needs no defense, and a person who constantly justifies every small decision is often trying to convince himself before he convinces you. Watch closely, and you'll see this pattern everywhere: in meetings, in relationships, in arguments between strangers online. The person with the weakest position talks the longest. The person who actually knows what he's doing says very little, because he doesn't need your approval to feel certain. This is also why honesty is often called the first chapter in the Book of Wisdom, because everything else you learn in life is built on top of a willingness to see things exactly as they are, not as you wish them to be. Poverty has a strange way of exposing character. When money disappears, so does affection built on convenience, and what remains is the truth about who actually stood beside you. This is why hardship, painful as it is, becomes the sharpest teacher life offers. You don't become wise while everything is comfortable. You become wise the moment comfort is taken away and you're forced to think for yourself. Hope, in this sense, becomes something precious to the poor in ways the wealthy rarely understand. When you have little, you learn to value what remains. When you have everything, you often forget to value anything at all. And this is precisely why the world will one day ask you who you are. And if you cannot answer that question yourself, the world will answer it for you, usually in a way you won't like. Fear works the same way. The moment you're afraid of something, you hand it power over your life without even realizing it. Whether it's fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of an uncertain future, the object of your fear grows only because you keep feeding it your attention. The wise don't pretend to be fearless. They simply refuse to let fear make their decisions for them. And this connects to another truth rarely spoken aloud. We fear the future mostly because we are wasting today. A person who uses his present moment fully has very little energy left over to dread tomorrow. It's the person sitting idle, avoiding what needs to be done, who finds himself haunted by everything that hasn't happened yet. Worry, left unchecked, has a peculiar habit of turning small things into enormous shadows. Problems that would take minutes to solve instead consume entire sleepless nights, simply because we allowed our imagination to run further than the actual facts ever justify. Watch how a person treats their children, and you'll understand a great deal about their wisdom. Making a child's life too easy doesn't protect them, it disables them. Struggle builds the very muscles that comfort quietly weakens. The same is true for adults. What hurts today is very often what strengthens you tomorrow, and anything worth having rarely comes without a cost hidden somewhere beneath the surface. Even pleasure, when it comes too easily, carries a hidden price. Anything that costs only money is, in the end, cheap, because the things that actually shape a person's character are paid for in effort, discomfort, and time, not currency. This is a lesson every generation seems to forget and must relearn the hard way, because the instinct to protect the people we love from pain often blinds us to the fact that pain, applied correctly, is one of life's most effective teachers. A foolish man believes one eye tells him more truth than two ears ever could. He trusts what he witnesses over what he's told. And there's wisdom in that instinct, because words are cheap and rumors travel faster than facts. But the truly wise person goes one step further. He watches what people do, not what they promise, because actions are the only language that never lies. A single lie left unchallenged has the power to undo 1,000 truths that came before it, which is exactly why trust, once broken, is so difficult to rebuild. Never trust someone who lies to you, and never lie to someone who has placed their trust in you. This single rule, followed consistently, would eliminate most of the pain people carry from their relationships. It sounds simple when spoken aloud, yet almost no one practices it consistently. Because honesty requires a kind of discomfort most people spend their whole lives avoiding. There is also a strange trick the clever use, turning even their enemies into tools. Why exhaust yourself fighting a battle directly when you can let circumstances, or even your rival's own hand, do the difficult work for you? The wise man doesn't rush into conflict. He studies the terrain first, because patience wins wars that impatience only prolongs. In fact, one of the most underrated skills in life is knowing when not to interrupt your enemy while he is already making a mistake. Silence in these moments is not weakness, it is strategy. The fire you kindle out of anger for someone else has an unfortunate tendency to burn you far more severely than it ever burns them, which is why the wisest response to provocation is often no response at all. Confidence, real confidence, doesn't need an audience. Notice how the wise almost never complain and almost never explain. They simply move forward, letting results speak on their behalf. Meanwhile, the fool is busy building excuses before he's even attempted the task, because deep down, making excuses feels safer than facing possible failure. Winners write history. Everyone else writes apologies. Arrogance, too, is a trait that belongs only to those who have already lost something essential. Genuine confidence has no need to look down on others, because it isn't threatened by them in the first place. Confidence, in fact, is often described as half of victory itself, not because belief alone accomplishes anything, but because doubt is usually what stops effort before it even begins. Silence itself is often mistaken for emptiness, when in truth, the quietest people usually carry the loudest minds. They are turning ideas over 100 times before speaking once, while others speak 100 times without a single thought behind it. If you ever meet someone who chooses their words carefully, listen closely, they are likely offering you something rare. And there is a reason our lives begin to lose their meaning the day we stop speaking our truth altogether. Silence used wisely is power, but silence used as avoidance is slow decay. There is a vast ocean between simply saying something and actually doing it, and most people spend their entire lives on the shore of intention, never once stepping into the water of action. One of the clearest signs of foolishness is repetition, not the mistake itself. Everyone makes mistakes, but making the very same one again and again without adjustment. A wise man treats every failure as a lesson delivered directly to him. A fool treats it as bad luck and tries the exact same approach a second, third, and fourth time, wondering why nothing changes. A bad workman always blames his tools, and a foolish man always blames his circumstances, his luck, or the people around him. Anything except the one decision that was actually his to make differently. If you cannot catch a single fish, the problem is rarely the sea itself. There is also a difference between how the rich and the poor absorb advice. When a wealthy man makes an offhand remark, the world treats it as profound wisdom simply because of who said it, even when the words themselves carry little weight. This is worth remembering the next time you're tempted to follow advice, simply because of a person's status rather than the substance of what they're actually saying. A large chair does not make a king, and a large bank account does not make a philosopher. Real authority comes from consistency of character, not from the size of one's audience or the depth of one's pockets. Even the way we help others reveals something about our wisdom. Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a single day. Teach him to fish instead, and you give him something that will feed him for the rest of his life. Yet so many of us, in our eagerness to help, end up creating dependency rather than capability. The most generous act is rarely the most immediate one. It is the one that requires patience, teaching, and the willingness to let someone struggle just enough to actually learn. And perhaps the deepest wisdom of all is this: you cannot grow until you're willing to admit how small you truly are. The moment you believe you already know enough, learning stops. The moment you accept how much remains unknown, real growth finally begins. Wisdom isn't the accumulation of answers. It's the courage to keep asking better questions, long after everyone else has stopped searching for them. The wise man doesn't hand you the right answer. He hands you the right question and trusts you to find your own way there. Those who keep learning will always keep rising, while those who believe their education ended the day they left school will find themselves standing still while the entire world moves past them. Even success itself can be deceptive. A single moment of triumph can end up costing years of quiet failure if it makes you careless, and a single mistake, left unexamined, can cost you far more than the moment itself ever did. This is why the wise measure their lives not by isolated victories, but by the habits they repeat daily, because habits, good or bad, always deliver their results eventually, whether you're watching closely or not. Excellence, in the end, isn't a single remarkable act. It's simply what happens when good habits are repeated so consistently that they stop looking like effort at all. So the next time you're deciding who to trust, who to listen to, and who to walk away from, remember, the wise build bridges in a crisis, while the foolish build walls and dams that only make the flood worse. Choose carefully who you allow to shape your thinking, because that choice, more than any other single decision, determines the life you eventually live. And when injustice appears in front of you, remember that neutrality is not the safe choice it appears to be. Remaining silent in the face of wrongdoing is, in itself, a decision to stand on the side of the wrong. When the law itself becomes unjust, standing against it stops being rebellion and becomes duty. If this made you pause and think, even for a moment, that's exactly why this channel exists. Hit subscribe to English Words, turn on the notification bell, and join a community that chooses wisdom over noise every single day.